A very good afternoon and welcome back to MotorLand Aragon for round 5 of the FIM CEV Repsol series. Jack Appleyard and Lewis Sudbury here with the European Moto2 Championship now taking to the grid, with the question being very simple. Can anybody finally beat the history maker Jari Montoya after the Italian has strung together a record-breaking 6 straight victories?
Yeah, that's the big question. The early signs this weekend are maybe the answer to that. He's not looked his usual dominant self so far this weekend. We'll come on to what we've seen if he practice at the moment, but you can just see how strong the wind is here at MotorLand Aragon. That will play its own part.
Jari Montoya, as we've said, taking 6 out of 6 in the European Moto2 Championship this year, with 3 of them coming at the Circuito de Jerez Angel Nieto, and all 3 of them were fairly comfortable, Lewis. He started from pole position and didn't look back from there, whether it be on Saturday or Sunday. A huge stand-up wheelie was the order of the day as he collected a record-breaking 6 straight victories. It's unheard of in this championship for anybody to show such dominance. Edgar Pons last year was able to win 6 in 7 races, but with a blip in between here at Aragon. Montoya, meanwhile, takes the record. The previous best being 4 in a row. Alessandro Zaccone, that man right there, was in contention and trying to apply pressure to Montoya before making a mistake. He will start from pole position here. We'll be hoping to not make similar mistakes here today. But it's that man, 55, Jari Montoya, that's the talk of the town in the European Moto2 Championship. Despite 6 straight victories though, his championship lead still only 34 points, with Nicky Tooley, the man in second at the moment, showing us similar run of consistency, where he's only finished outside of P2 on 1 occasion, and when he did finish outside of P2, he finished 3rd in the 2nd race in Jerez. 2 races, of course, for the European Moto2 Championship there, rather than the 3 that I've wrongly just mentioned. Getting confused with European Talent Cup. They, of course, do have 3 this weekend, though. Just the 1 today, 2 tomorrow. But with the question at the top of the show, can anybody beat Jari Montoya? Well, as you rightly say, I think the answer is maybe, because he doesn't start from the front row for the first time in some time. He starts from 4th, fronting row number 2 of the grid. Does the young Italian, can he make that 175 points in about 45 minutes time? I'm sure that the men on the front row of the grid, Zaccone, Kubo and Tooley, will have something to say about it. Yeah,
it's the first time he started off the front row by virtue of his qualifying time all season. He did start back in 7th on the grid at the opening race of the season in Estoril, but that was, of course, down to a 6th place grid penalty that he was handed after qualifying. He's qualified on the front row at every single circuit. In fact, I think he was on pole at every circuit prior to this one. Here's the man who will start from pole position, Alessandro Zaccone, and he, alongside Nicky Tooley, will be looking to make a real dent into that championship lead of Montoya. This season has, in some ways, represented or mirrored the 2019 World Superbike season, where we saw one rider win a lot and the other guy finish 2nd, and one crash can change everything.
A debut pole for Alessandro Zaccone in the wet of yesterday. Here's what he had to say.
I'm very happy for this pole position, because it's my first pole position in Moto2. So I hope for this weekend that will be sunny, but I don't know. We did a very good job in the test, and yeah, I'm very happy, and we try to win this weekend.
Well, unfortunately for Alessandro Zaccone, we couldn't make his wishes come true. It's not exactly sunny here in Aragon. It's becoming increasingly overcast, Lewis, with those grey clouds we mentioned at the top of the show when the European Talent Cup guys were about to get underway. Doubled in size, and it's looking increasingly grey and gloomy.
It is. Although for Alessandro Zaccone, he might have preferred it to be slightly mixed in terms of weather conditions, but he's been quick in all conditions here. Fastest in the wet yesterday, but we had some testing here on Thursday, and Zaccone was quickest in the dry then too. So there's no reason to say that he can't stay up there if we have a dry race, which it looks likely we're going to, even if the conditions are chilly and windy. He won't have it all his own way, of course, but if you look at the championship standings, he's got an 87-point gap to try and make up. Well, in fact, that championship standings is already handing Montoya an extra victory, which may not indeed prove to be wrong come the end of this race, but we'll try not to tempt fate on that one for Thierry Montoya. The actual gap from Zacconi is 62. Thierry Montoya, who leads the championship by 34 from Nicky Tully. This rider doesn't feature on that because we saw him for the first time in Jerez, but he's certainly impressed us since then.
He has, the charismatic Thai rider Kemin Kuba riding for the VR46 Master Camp concern. Unfortunately, because of travel restrictions, couldn't join us in the opening 4 rounds in Portugal, but was able to get to Jerez. You can see there 24th and 5th. Well, the 24th is actually because he crashed and rejoined whilst being in 5th place, and then eventually got his top 5 finish, which matched what we saw from him in Jerez in 2019, incidentally. But this is a second consecutive front row start for the number 9. And from what we saw in Jerez, he's going to be extremely late on the brakes into turn 1. He doesn't half like a lunge up the inside to try and bag the whole shot.
Yeah, he's one of the very few select group of riders, which includes this man, Nicky Tully, who could say that they've actually ran ahead of Thierry Montoya in a race this year. Kubo did lead briefly on the first lap back at Jerez. So here's the man then who sits second in the championship, and I alluded to last year's World Superbike Championship because that start to the season was pretty much the start of the season that Jonathan Rea had last year in the World Superbike Championship, and then a crash or two for Alvaro Bautista turned things on its head, as Nicky Tully, who should be used to chilly weather, being a Finn, he's even struggling with the conditions at the moment, but he'll be looking for 25 points, maximum points here. If Montoya is even slightly off his game, this is the time to pounce.
Well, that is official confirmation that it is cold here in Aragon. If a man from Finland is saying it's a bit chilly, then it's definitely a bit chilly.
It certainly is. Nicky Tully starts 3rd on the grid, as we're now on to the 2nd row of the grid.
Great performance from Alex Toledo, this, on a stock 600 machine. And yeah, he's telling us it's cold as well. Yeah, we've got it, lads. It's a bit cold out there. Just 18 years of age is Alex Toledo. Equals the best Super Stock 600 qualifying performance since Ivo Lopez, the Portuguese rider, at Estoril back in March of 2018. Yes, the wet weather was a little bit of a leveller and certainly helped him out, but still a great performance to stick it there in the middle of the front row. And as you might be able to guess, it is his best ever qualifying performance in this European Moto2 Championship. If this is the first time that you're tuning in, wondering why on earth there are Superstock 600 machines out there, well, it's a championship within a championship.
Yeah, it is indeed. They row alongside each other, and obviously the Moto2 bikes, understandably, often have an advantage. We're now looking at 6th placed Pierrepont Boonler, who starts at the back of the 2nd row. He's another rider alongside Kubo, his teammate, who we saw for the first time at Jerez. Now, he comes with a very strong pedigree. He's the reigning Asia Road Racing Championship Super Sport 600 champion. So he is very much at home on this level of machinery, and he starts on the 2nd row today.
Be careful what you say about Pierrepont Boonler, Lewis, because he is quite a decent Muay Thai boxer. If you look at his Instagram, he has got some fierce leg kicks, the likes of Israel Adesanya would be proud of. So whatever we say, make sure it's always positive about Boonler, because I don't fancy taking one of them to the head.
No, and Xavi Artigas might be giving him a bit of a wide berth in that sense from 7th on the grid. Step very, very carefully, Xavi. He's had a busy year, of course, because not only does he ride in the European Moto2 Championship, but he also rides in the FIM NL Moto E World Cup, and he's coming here on the back of a couple of top 10 finishes at the Emilia-Romagna Grand Prix back in September, and he's looking to match a best finish so far this year of 5th place, which he's achieved on a couple of occasions. Extremely
experienced is the Andorran, got 32 Grand Prix to his name over 2018 and 2019. And talking of Grand Prix experience, that's exactly what this man has this year. Alejandro Medina, not only battling it out in the FIM NL Moto E World Cup, but also took a ride in the Moto2 World Championship at the Styrian Grand Prix, replacing the injured Hafiz Sayrin in the Aspar squad, with the team of which he rides for in the Moto E World Cup. 5 straight top 5s, including a debut podium for Medina in the 2nd of the 2 Jerez races last time out. So just starting to find his feet now on the Moto2 machine.
Yeah, he is. He's coming here on the back of his first podium last time out in the the second of the 2 races we had at Jerez. As we look at the very chilly Tiger Harder, who's making sure he's wrapped up warm before he sets off from 9th on the grid. And he's a rider who's just been improving as the season's gone on. He's closing in on that first Moto2 European Championship podium, a brace of 4th places at Jerez for him. So one more step for him to make now, and that is the podium, although from 9th on the grid, that might be a bit of a stretch.
He looks like he can't wait to get underway. And
warm himself up.
No. Will somebody go get that man a Jorge Lorenzo-style scarf just to try warm him up a little bit? He looks absolutely freezing. No such problems for this man. The number 54 of Fermin Aldeguer on the Superstock 600 machine. Incidentally, he is leading that Superstock 600 championship at the moment. And he's going incredibly well to be on a Superstock 600 bike and be inside the top 10 of the championship. He's 9th overall at the moment in the Moto2 series, just 15 years of age. Made the jump up from the European Moto2, made the jump up from the European Talent Cup Championship last year, and for 15 years of age he's pretty tall and he suits that stock 600 bike. Don't be surprised to see him on a Moto2 machine next year and challenging at the front. So here's the starting grid then for race 7 of 11 in the European Moto2 Championship, with a debut pole position going the way of Alessandro Zaccone, joined on the front row by Kenneth Kubo and Nicky Tooley. Row number 2, championship leader Yari Montoya, Alex Toledo and Pierapong Boonler, with row 3 Xavi Cardaluz, Alejandro Medina and Tiger Harder.
Fermin Aldeguer starts from the front of row 4 and for once is not the top Superstock 600 rider on the grid. He has Adam Norradine and Mark Luna for company. Sam Wilford, he starts 13th on the grid. He's had a change of team since the last round. He's now with AGR. He starts ahead of Ishizuka and August, with Rato, Seba and Zetti on row 6.
The final row of the grid, Andreas Koffler, Kevin August and the American Connor Funk. Nice of us to give a mention to Sam Wilford there, as you rightly say, moving across to the championship winning team of last year, the AGR concern, teammate to Tiger Harder now. So he's hoping to continue his development in this class this year before really having a good go at it in 2021. But it's been a good year so far for the Brit in 2020, hoping for more of the same, especially now that he's in a team with that much experience.
Speaking of things that have changed since the last round at Jerez, you'll have noticed a couple of noticeable absentees from that grid lineup. Piotr Bieszykerski, the impressive Pole, who's done a very good job so far this season. He's become a Grand Prix rider since we last saw him. He's been substituting for the RW Racing GP team on an NTS, and he will be riding at the French Grand Prix next weekend, so his focus understandably is on that. And Lukas Tulovic is also missing, the Kiefer Racing rider. He suffered a broken hand whilst on Moto E duty at Misano, and he's also resting and recuperating, ready for their season finale next weekend.
Yeah, hopefully Lukas Tulovic is healing up nicely, because that was a monster high side in that Moto E race. He was quite literally sent to the moon and back. Was very fortunate to only have a break of the middle finger, I think it is. So whatever we say about Lukas Tulovic, he's going to be extremely rude towards us anyway, because there's already only one finger up in the air, no matter what you say to him. But hopefully he's doing okay, and we'll be able to see him in Moto E action for the final 2 races of the all-electric series in a week's time at the French Grand Prix in Le Mans. As you can see, temperature has risen ever so slightly, only a couple of degrees warmer now, 17, but the wind still stays the same, and the wind is the major factor here. Not so much for the Moto2 guys, certainly will have played a part for the European Talent Cup guys having to deal with that sort of a wind, but with the bigger bikes, the bigger men, the Moto2 guys should be able to deal with the wind a lot more effectively. Here is the championship standings, which are wrong once again. Yari Montoya, there's only been 6 races, so it's impossible for him to have 175 points. He has had a perfect start to life, yes, but he's picked up 150 points. He is 32 clear, not 55, of Nicky Tooley.
Yeah, they're also predicting that Nicky Tooley is going to finish 12th in this race and add 4 points to his total. So I think the FIM will be looking to prove that wrong in this race. Keep an eye, I think, from the first row of the grid on Kenneth Kubo. We've already talked about his prowess on the brakes. He's very keen to have a go. I think he's the rider that we're going to have a look for. With that very short, sharp dash to turn 1, he'll be looking to get straight up the inside of Poleman Zacconi.
He's not afraid of a lunge up the inside, is the number 9. Extremely charismatic, and that's shown off the track and on the track as well. A likeable character is Kubo, and he's looking to try and grab some headlines here in Aragon. Meanwhile, Nicky Tooley starts from the outside of the front row, ahead of his championship contender, Jari Montoya. Can he try and claw back some points, or will Zaccone be able to get himself into contention? Once again, we wait an eternity for the lights to come on. They eventually go off, and it's a strong start despite a big wheelie from Zaccone, an even bigger wheelie. I think that was from Fermin Aldeguer back on row 4 of the grid, but it's the whole shot that goes the way of Zaccone from pole position.
A crucial move from Montoya. There you see him up the inside of Nicky Tully for 3rd position. That's the 2 leading championship contenders. As you mentioned, Jack, a huge wheelie off the line from Fermin Aldeguer. We'll see whether that cost him any time off the line. Doesn't appear to have done so.
A huge move up the inside from Kubo, and somehow he gets it stopped through turn 4 and into turn 5 as well. That was brave from the number 9. Pulls a big wheelie out of turn 5 and through turn 6 as well. This is some showing from the number 9 at the front of the field.
And that's Tiger Harder up in 4th place. He's gained 5 places. He's now ahead of Tully. We saw him getting up the inside of him as they completed that first sector of the lap. So Tully going backwards and Harder shooting up the field into 4th. Toledo on the leader of the Super Stock riders. He's now 7th. We've had another Super Stock 600 rider stop though already. August, unfortunately, Leon August is out of the race. Aldeguer did not lose any positions. He's still in 10th.
Change for 6th place as well. We saw Medina get in front of Tully, but here comes the Finn back up the inside of Medina and Tiger Harder as well. He pushes Harder wide, and the Japanese star will lose 2 places, and Medina manages to swoop through as well. Meanwhile, back at the front, a change of the lead with Zaccone now taking it away from Kubo, with Jari Montoya looming. Mistake there from Kubo. Runs wide, but will be able to hold on to it as he then flick left through turn 15. That surely will have compromised his drive down here, but it looks as though he's held on to it somehow. 2nd place still for Kubo despite that mistake.
It's not right out of the textbook, but it's certainly entertaining to watch from Kenneth Kubo. He is all action, all aggression as we see him backing it in to turn 16. I'm not sure that's the fastest way, although he might just grab a tight late apex. He does indeed bring it back into line, and that might actually give him a decent run onto the straight as he's right on the tail of Zaccone as we come across the line. He is buried in the slipstream, and you're surely going to see him have a go. No, not yet. He pulls in behind with Montoya in 4th. Tully's regrouped from that tricky first half to the opening lap. He's now right back on the tail of Montoya.
It's box office stuff watching Kenneth Kubo. He has it sideways at every given opportunity, and so far it's working out pretty well for the Thai rider. Zaccone is out front though. Remember, he hasn't tasted victory in this European Moto2 class since Estoril last year in the wet. He's had to wait some while to find race win number 2 of his European Moto2 career. It's too early to say it's coming now. Meanwhile, big move in the championship, because there goes Nicky Tully up the inside of Jari Montoya. 4th place for Montoya. This is the worst showing we've seen from him ever since he had that penalty at the first race of the year in Estoril.
Uncharted territory this for Jari Montoya. What are all those bikes doing in front of him? He's off the podium as it stands at the moment. We're watching as well just behind him Alejandro Medina, who is now leading that sort of 2nd pack, which includes Tiger Harder. Boonlet's in there 2 in 7th, with Toledo now running 8th. Cardalus is running 9th. He's dropped a couple off the start line. Adam Norradini, who started outside the top 10, he's now gone ahead of Fermin Aldeguer as we look at this top 4 again. Tully trying to take 2nd place, and it's gone all wrong for him, and now he's going to have to overtake Montoya all over again.
Hard on the brakes into turn 12 with Tully. Got it crossed up, got it all wrong, ran wide, and he's allowed Jari Montoya to squeeze back through. Again, Kubo is wide through turn 14, but again he manages to pick it up and chuck it into turn 15 and just about get himself down the back straight in front of Jari Montoya still.
Yeah, Montoya's probably plotting there as he sits there in 3rd place how he's going to deal with Kubo ahead of him, but I honestly wouldn't know where to start. He's having a go now down this back straight. Can he get at the inside? No, he can't, and he'll be almost suckered in here because Kubo will run wide. That will almost entice Montoya to go up the inside of him, but then he just grabs that late apex again, and he's just so much stronger on the exit of the corner. The 2nd half of that final corner for Kubo is so strong that it puts him right on the tail again. Fastest lap of the race that time around as we look back for Xavi Cardalus back in 7th place. He's the fastest man on track at the moment on a 1:56.5, but all the leading runners pretty much neck and neck on pace in 56.6s. The one rider who lost out, as you saw, was Tully, who dropped half a second to the top 3 on that lap with the error at turn 12.
He would be a nightmare to fight with, Kenneth Kubo, because he's just so unpredictable. You know that if you get in front of him, like Montoya's done there, big moment. Has he managed to stay on in the 55? Yes, just about. An almighty save from Jari Montoya. You could see there, that is just getting impatient behind Kubo. He was getting frustrated, sat behind him, felt he had to dive up the inside into turn 5, got it all wrong, and somehow stays on the bike.
And Tully got the elbows goes out as well. He's taken full advantage. He's now from almost dropping to 5th on the last lap. He's now finding himself in 2nd with Montoya back in 5th. Whether it's the cool conditions, whether it's the wind, or whether it's just a bit of over exuberance, there's mistakes aplenty in the opening couple of laps of this Moto2 European Championship race. And the latest mistake, and the biggest of all, coming from the championship leader. How did he stay on that bike?
He had it crossed up and he was out of the seat as well. I think both feet were off the foot pegs. It'd be great to see a replay of it, to see exactly what happened, the aftermath of it. But yeah, just about staying on Montoya. And without doubt, this is the hardest he has had to work all year long.
It is, it is. The two Superstock 600 riders now are running together, by the way. Toledo and Aldeguer are running 9th and 10th. This is the moment, I think it is. Look at that. He's got it way out of shape. And as you see, well, the battle for second just took off ahead of him. But yeah, that could have ended up so badly. As you can see, the team, I think that was their reaction as they saw him disappear out of shot, waiting with bated breath to see whether he was still on 2 wheels.
It was the front end that went. I think you could see the front end just drifted into turn 5. A great save from Montoya. I thought it was the back end that tried to kick out on him, but he's saved it on the front. And do you know what? With the front end going and Kubo getting it sideways, just makes my heart jump a little bit. But with the front end going, he's lucky to save that because he very, very nearly not only took himself down, but Kubo as well, who was on the outside.
There'll be some urgency, I think, from him now because his championship rival, Nicky Tulli, has taken the lead. He took it into turn 1 on Alessandro Zacconi, the poleman. A fast lap that last time around from Tulli, a 1:55.6, the only rider that lap in the 55s. Next fastest man to him on that lap was Zacconi, actually, as it goes, but he only managed a 1:56.4. So it's understandable why Tulli was being so aggressive in those stages. He clearly feels very, very strong indeed, and he's already putting some serious time into Zacconi and Kubo behind him. There
goes Montoya through into 4th place now. He's got ahead of Alejandro Medina. He has to do that as well, because if he was down in 5th place, there would be an unheard of 14-point swing in the championship that'd see Tulli put his advantage down to 18 points. That's where you've got to take your hat off for Tulli. Despite Montoya's dominance, he hasn't given up. He's continually been there in 2nd place for 5 of the races, 3rd in the other one, and he's just applied the pressure, meaning that if any mistake came from Montoya, he was there to pounce and suddenly cut the advantage down to less than 20 points.
Yeah, it is, and the top 3 seemingly staying together at the moment. It looks as if that first part of the lap was as if Tulli was putting a bit of a gap into them. Not the case at the moment. It looks as if Zacconi has responded, with Kubo staying just about in touch. And now the question, of course, will be whether Montoya can bridge that gap. He's 1.1 seconds off the back of Kubo, who runs 3rd. He's 1.7 behind the race leader, as once again Kubo getting it all crossed up.
He is brilliant to watch as Kevin Kubo. I don't think it's helping him stay with Zacconi and Tulli at the front of the race. And certainly it's the sort of rider that is going to come under a few grip issues come the end of the race. The manner in which he gets it sideways out of the last corner and through the likes of turn 11 and turn number 3 here as well. Of course, here at Aragon, with a number of high-speed corners on the side of the tyre, grip is a real issue. These guys have got to look after the tyres to make sure that they're going to be still with them at the end of the race. Meanwhile, mistake there from Tulli through turn 5, runs out onto the green bit and has a big moment. Oh, he's lucky to stay on that, and Zacconi's lucky to stay away from it as well. Zacconi then runs wide as well, and Tulli, I think, has retaken the lead. But Zacconi just about holds on. What a dramatic couple of corners that was here in the European Moto2 Championship. Another almighty save, this time from Tulli.
Does anybody want to win this race? They're all making mistakes and just dropping themselves back down the field again. Montoya's eyes will have lit up at that, because that will have allowed him now to slash into that gap that the top 3 have at the moment. And Tulli, from leading the race and looking pretty strong, now has Kubo right behind him. And if there's one rider in this field I wouldn't like right on my rear wheel, it's Kenneth Kubo.
Yeah, you just know that he's going to make a lunge down into turn 16 at the end of the back straight. He's getting it lined up there through turns 12 and 13. Now we're into the final chicane that leads onto the back straight. Hard onto the brakes, they'll go right. Then a change of direction to go left through turn 15 and get a perfect run down this near kilometre-long back straight. Zacconi leads the way. Tulli tucked in behind him, with then Kubo tucked in behind the Finn in 3rd. Meanwhile, let's just have a quick look at Montoya, the championship leader, in 4th place. He's certainly been able to pull clear of Medina in 5th, and he has been able to close the gap between himself and Kubo to less than a second now. You can see it was 1.2 the last time around, but I can tell you it's It's now going to be, what, half a second as he come across the line. The leading trio crossed the line in front of us there. And then Montoya comes across the line, and yep, it's 0.8 of a second, 0.8 between the rear wheel of Kubo and the front wheel of Montoya, and I think that gap is going to come down bit by bit as the laps tick by.
Personal best that time around for Montoya. He's clearly got his head down now. The only rider that last lap around in the 1 minute 55, so 55.9 for him. As once again we're seeing a nice variety of lines from these leading three. Very, very different styles. I'm not quite sure at the minute which one is the one that you'd recommend to people. Kubo is all aggression. Thule's erratic, really. He's looking strong, but he's also making mistakes. He's a little wide there as well. As we go around the right-hander of turn 7, that might give Zacconi a run. No, Zacconi's still too far back. And Zacconi's the rider who's sort of holding station at the moment and just taking advantage of all these errors.
I think this is going to be the replay of Nicky Thule's moment through turn number 5 and 6. No, it's not. This is going to be the manner in which Nicky Thule retook the lead away from Alessandro Zaccone. A typical Aragon move, pulling out of the slipstream down the start-finish straight and diving past on the brakes into the 90-degree left-hander of turn number 1. But he certainly made a meal of it, running ever so slightly wide, just giving an option for Zaccone to pull alongside him, but he had the inside line as he then flicked right for turn 2, and that's how things are with 10.5 laps remaining here in Aragon in the European Moto2 Championship.
Yeah, looking at some of the riders who perhaps dropped further back. Mark Luna, who's a newer rider to this class. You might know him if you've followed World Supersport 300 in the past. He's dropped all the way down to 18th after a fairly strong qualifying. He started up in 12th. He's dropped all the way down the field. But outside the top 10, behind the two Superstock 600 runners, which are still being led by Toledo, he's got a near 3-second lead over Aldeguer. Adam Norridin's in 11th, ahead of Sam Wolford 12th, Rato in 13th, Ishizuka 14th, and the last point at the moment is held by Alessandro Zetti. The top 3, though, across the line, almost together, and they're all in the low 156s. And that last lap around, Montoya could only match the leading 3. He could not eat any further into the lead. He's still 1.1 off the lead and 0.8 behind Kubo in 3rd position. So Montoya at the moment matching these leaders, but he's not roaring up to the back of them as we expected.
Big bobble on the front end there from Kubo as they went into turn number 3. This is the race start with Zaccone, despite the front wheel being off the ground, being able to eventually get it planted. You can see the 54 of Aldeguer there. Yep, a massive wheelie from him. He certainly went skywards, but he got the drive, did Zaccone, from pole position, despite Kubo being a bit of a lunge merchant into turn number 1 on the opening lap. He was not close enough to be able to try and steal the whole shot away from Zaccone. Since then, he has dropped back to 2nd place. That's still how things are at the front of the race. Thule, the number 66, leads the way as he very shortly come into vision. There they are, 66 Thule, followed by 61 Zaccone, followed by the 9 of Kubo. A little bit of a bobble there from Thule as they then go hard on the brakes into turn number 12 in front of the famous Aragon wall there to the left-hand side.
Yeah, I mentioned Alex Toledo a moment ago, the leading Superstock 600 runner. He's clearly not been dissuaded by the history or the talents that we know that Boonlert has, because he's gone past him into 8th position on the Superstock 600 bike. So he's looking on the course at the moment to take his first victory in that class this year. He's been 2nd to Aldeguer every single race so far, but at the moment he's got over 3.5 seconds on the young Spaniard of Aldeguer. So the best ride we've seen so far from Toledo, proving that strong qualifying was far from a fluke. He's backing it up in the race.
Here's the battle further down the field. That's Tiger Harder there, and that's the battle you've just mentioned with Boonlert and Aldeguer. No, sorry, of Toledo battling it out for 8th place. Boonlert did manage to steal it back, but not for long. It's now Toledo back in front as they continue to squabble over 8th place. A similar squabble going on for 6th place with Cardelus and Harder batting it out over 6th place, just a couple of bike lengths up the road from those two. Back at the front though, still Thule that leads the way ahead of Zaccone and Kubo, with Montoya once again, in fact, slower than the leading trio the last time around. I thought that advantage was going to go only in one direction, but actually it's going the other way. It's now a second between Kubo and Montoya. He was a 1/4 of a second slower than the Thai rider last time around.
Yeah, it doesn't look like he has the pace to match them, does it? He's just having a watching brief at the moment in 4th place. He'll be hoping, I'm assuming, that there's a bit more chaos and a bit more battling between these front 3 that enables him to close back up. But at the moment, they're holding station, behaving themselves as much as they have so far this race, as Thule leads Zaccone and Kubo. And it's a bit of a holding pattern now in this race, and we'll see whether this picks up again later in the race as Thule's getting the rear wheel out stepping out as he goes out of turn 10. Whether that gives Zacconi a run on him, we shall see. That's the state of play at the moment. With Thule leading the race, he'd take a big bite into Montea's lead from 34 down to 22. He'd be within a race worth of points.
Incidentally, these two at the front, both Nicky Thule and Alessandro Zaccone, only with one victory to their name in their European Moto2 Championship career. Where did they come, I hear you ask? Both of them at Estoril in 2019. Alessandro Zaccone, picking up his victory in the wet weather in the afternoon, with Nicky Thule also picking it up in the wet weather as he took full advantage of Jari Montoya crashing out of a 5-second lead in the closing stages. So both of them have had some weight from the last time they were able to stand on the top step of the podium here in the European Moto2 class.
Yeah, as we go across the line now, 8 to go. The leading 4, in fact, virtually identical times, all doing a 1 minute 56.1. So Montoya, he clearly has the pace to match these. Whether he's got the pace to catch them, though, it remains to be seen. He's still holding about a second behind the leading trio. Kubo now starting to ever so slightly drop back through this first sector. Whether he just pulls that back again, we'll have to wait and see. And he just yo-yos back and forth behind the leading duo. This is Alejandro Medina that we're looking at in a pretty lonely 5th at the moment. He's unable to match the pace of the leading 4. He's some 8-10 slower than them on that lap, but he's got a comfortable 2.6 second lead over a big battle going on for 6th at the moment between Xavi Cardelus, Tiger Harder, and the Superstock 600 star Alex Toledo.
On course for a 6th straight top 5 finish at the moment is Alejandro Medina. Meanwhile, back at the front, there's your championship leader, Jari Montoya. He hasn't been able to close that advantage, as we've been saying, over the past couple of laps. But worth bearing in mind, we're only at half race distance. 8 of the 16 completed, meaning another, 7.5 to go now. So still plenty of chance for him to try and chip away, especially as we get into the latter stages. And any of the guys at the front may start to undercome a couple of grip issues.
Yeah, he's looking good on this lap, actually, Montoya. Personal best in each of the first 2 sectors, so maybe there is a little bit more pace left in that speed up. As we look at the front too, it looks as if Zacconi's playing that patient game at the moment. He's just shadowing Nicky Thule as we go into this second half of the race. Clearly feels perhaps that he's got the pace to overtake, but clearly I think if he had the pace to break away from Thule, he might have had a go by now. So it looks as if Zacconi's just sitting in there, just trying to keep a watching brief. But the gap between 3rd and 4th is very much, it's getting a lot closer. Whether that is Montoya getting quicker and Kubo reversing back towards him, though, we'll wait and see, because Kubo looks as if he's dropped back a little bit on this lap. They're going past us now across the start of finish line. The top 2 in the 55s. Montoya, a 1:55.6. That is a very, very strong lap indeed. That's the fastest by a long way that we've seen from Montoya so far. A little bit shy of Thule's fastest lap of the race, but a good 1/4 of a second quicker than the leading 2, and 1/2 a second quicker than Kubo ahead of him. That podium is coming into view for him.
Just a fraction shy of the fastest lap of the race at half race distance from Jari Montoya. As we've seen in the Moto2 World Championship, the speed ups are superb at holding on to late tyre grip. And that's exactly what we're seeing here as well. Jorge Navarro, Fabio Di Gianantonio and Aaron Canet, all late charges in the Moto2 World Championship. And Montoya is showing a similar rich vein of form here as well. Now closing in onto the rear wheel of Kevin Kubo, despite a box office performance so far from the tie rider. It looks as though at the moment, with 6.5 laps remaining, like a debut podium finish in this championship may well evade him. However, one thing we can be guaranteed is the number 9 will put up a fight for it. Talking of fights, here comes a change for the lead. Is the big look up the inside from Alessandro Zaccone. Shows his front wheel to Nicky Thule, but no way through just yet. Yeah,
he's been able to take such a tighter line through a number of these corners, Zaccone. He's clearly got more pace than Thule at the moment, but Thule just good enough on the brakes to hold him off. This next corner will be crucial as we go through this left-hand rear 15 onto the back straight. Can Zaccone put himself nicely in the slipstream? And I don't know whether any of the teams will be telling these guys that Montoya is now with them and telling them that it's now a group of 4 rather than a group of 3, because that might just increase the urgency for Alessandro Zaccone in second place. If he's got the pace to go past Thule, he might want to do it now if the threat is increasing behind him, as once again, Kubo looking like he's taking the car park route through turn 16, but brings it back in nicely and holds Montoya off. But it's very much a group of 4 now fighting at the front as we cross the line to start another lap. That's 10 completed now, and just 1/2 a second covers the top 4.
Well, I've seen Kenneth Kubo on the brakes into turn 16 10 times now, and I still have absolutely no idea how he manages to get it stopped every single time. It's brilliant to watch, and so far working wonders for the tie rider, still holding off Jari Montoya, but he's certainly got company now. The 55 swarming all over the rear wheel of Kubo. This is where the incident came last time as Tooley runs wide, changing the lead surely. He's going to have the inside line through turn 6 though. He pushes back Zaccone wide. No way through for the Italian just yet, but as you rightly say, Lewis, we have ourselves an 8-wheeler here in the European Moto2 Championship with 5.5 laps remaining.
Yeah, Tooley got it all wrong through turn 4. It was 5 that ended up running wide, but he was already offline going through turn 4, and he just couldn't get it back in. You're already slowing down and getting on the brakes for turn 5 as you go through 4, and in the end, Tooley just didn't get it back in. But crucially for him, as he ran slightly wide, he was able to keep that inside line for 6 and 7 and hold Zaccone off. But it does look as if it's a bit of a matter of time at the moment. Zaccone looks so much more faster and so much more consistent. He's staying it on line. Tooley's the one who's running a little bit wide. You see him taking a slightly wider line there again, but that's no great problem at the moment. But Zaccone's looking so threatening behind him. We'll see now whether he makes a move, whether he decides he's going to wait a little bit longer, because as we've mentioned, Montoya is with them now. So I don't think Zaccone will want to wait too much longer before he attacks here.
You're exactly right what you say there, Lewis. Tooley just looks to be absolutely on the limit, whereas Zaccone is still nice and calm, nice and collected. He's picking his markers and looks extremely smooth out there. The same can't be said for Tooley. He looks to be on edge at the moment and struggling to get the bike back to the apex on a number of occasions.
Montoya's on the inside.
Oh, contact between the pair of them. Montoya just gives Kubo a little bit of a kiss, and he apologises as well for it. I'm sure Kubo will be riled after that one. He'll be looking for a way back through. He's not close enough into turn 1 though, but Montoya eventually gets the job done on Kubo. He tried earlier on and had a huge moment on the front end. Again, there was contact between them as they came out to the last corner, but at long last, Montoya is through and into 3rd place ahead of Kubo.
Kubo was speedway style into turn 1 there as they started the next lap, but that's that late apex again that we've mentioned. Into that final corner, he goes way out wide as they go through 16, then pulls a late apex in for 17, and that is like a red rag to a bull for someone like Jari Montoya, who sees that gap, and he's not going to wait twice. He's going to go straight for it, and in the end, Kubo was able to grab that late apex, bring the bike back in, but unfortunately, there was a big bright green speed up in the way.
I think that's a clear indication that Montoya's in a rush here. He knows that time is running out and he wants that 7th straight win in the European Moto2 class. He knew that he couldn't wait any longer behind Kubo. He had the pace to go with the leading duo who were starting to escape as well. Here's a replay of exactly what happened. Once again, Kubo sideways through the final corner. It was Zaccone and Tooley out front that had it line astern as he came out to turn 17. And there's Montoya with a little bit of a kiss to Kubo as he came out to turn 17. And then for good measure as well, he just says, "Sorry, mate," and cracks on with it.
Yeah, I'm clearly Montoya. I mean, he must have seen this line that Kubo likes to take through the final corner, so it wouldn't have been a surprise to him to see him run out wide and then just come swooping back across. But as I mentioned, there's gaps there, and he's going to go for it. And we're going to have a change of lead now as Zaccone's now taking the lead from Tooley. We'll hopefully be able to catch up on where that happened in the 3rd sector of the lap. But now Tooley's going to have to make a move straight away. If he's struggling to hold that rhythm, and Zaccone's clearly got more pace, Tooley's got to fight back straight away, because this could be the key moment of the race. There'll be just 4 laps to go as they come across the line this time around, with Zaccone ahead of Tooley, and Montoya is now right with them as well in the battle for 3rd place. Kubo, to his credit, staying in touch in 4th.
Here comes Tooley looking to fight back, had it sideways into turn 1 and eventually gets it stopped as well. I just think you never know that Zaccone, whilst in 2nd place, might have had a pit board a lap prior saying that it was 0.5 Kubo, and then suddenly when it said 0.3 Montoya, he's thought, right, I need to get to it here, especially with the laps ticking away. Now only 3.5 remaining here of Aragon. Time was running out, so he had to make that move, even more so the fact that Montoya was now through into 3rd place. Bit of a mistake from the young Italian there through turn 5 though. He was starting to close in on Tooley, but he's just lost a bike length or 2 after that small mistake through turn number 5. Tooley, meanwhile, has not given up the ghost just yet, despite looking a little bit ragged out there. He's managing to stay with the rear wheel of Zaccone as we go through the reverse corkscrew here, turns 8 and 9.
Yeah, we haven't seen it, but that move came in the 3rd sector from Zaccone, and we did see him a few times feigning for a look up the inside into turn 12, so I wonder whether he finally made that move stick as we go into what some call the bus stop section here at Aragon, the the left-right followed by another right-left. That may be the place where we saw the move coming, and that's now where Tuli's under pressure again from Jari Montoya into that same left-hander of 12. Zacconi looking cool and calm at the front. Will he still be cool and calm if he suddenly has Montoya on his rear wheel? We shall see. We've got 3.5 laps to go now as we look at the 55 of Montoya in third place. They're setting fast sector times these. The pace, despite the fact they're battling each other, the pace is still red hot. Montoya fastest of anybody in the race so far in that second sector of the lap as he puts himself right in position behind Tuli, but not close enough this time around.
And fair play to Kevin Kubo as well. I did think he was going to drop off the back of this group pretty rapidly, but he's staying with them at the moment, and he's still there, just about in contention. He'll be hoping to pick up any scraps that may well fall off the plate if this leading trio start to go to war. With now 3 laps left of Aragon. Zacconi leads the way. Tuli there in second, Montoya in third, Kubo in fourth. We've got 3 laps. This is going to be one hell of a fight for victory here in Aragon.
You're right to mention Kubo. He just set his personal best lap of the race that time around, so no sign of him dropping off the back of his leading group. Zacconi in the 55s that time around. He's still got plenty of pace in hand over Tuli, who's just fighting tooth and nail to just keep his bike on the racing line at the moment. He's working at the moment. He's got 3 more laps to go to try and hold off Montoya. It looks at the moment as if he might not have enough as he runs slightly wide again through turn 5 to make a real run at Zacconi. And Montoya, surely, with just 2.5 laps to go, if he has any desires on a 7 straight race win, he's got to go now.
He has to make a move this lap, does Montoya, because Zacconi is finding pace. He's just set the fastest first sector we've seen all race long, and he's starting to pull clear. Zacconi can smell that first victory since March of 2019. He will have Tuli and Montoya to contend with if he makes one small error, but it's so far so good. However, there is a back marker just looming in the distance. Hopefully, he stays out of the way and doesn't affect any of the proceedings here. But the number 97 of Connor Funk, meanwhile, there goes Montoya. Montoya makes his move into turn 12. He's hard on the brakes there. Surely he's going to run wide, but he's going to have the inside line into turn 13, and he eventually gets the job done. Here we go. Connor Funk surely will move out of the way, which he does for Alessandro Zacconi. Not the best place, yeah. Fair play, Connor Funk rolls out of the way. I thought if he was on his racing line, he'd have really got in the way of Montoya, but does a good bit of work there. Does Connor Funk to stay out of the way, and now the race is on. It's going to be 2 laps to go. Zacconi versus Montoya. He's got a second to try and pull in the final 2 laps of the race if he wants to continue his streak of victories.
Yeah, it was a crucial move that from Montoya, but unfortunately it wasn't quite as clean as he hoped. We saw him run wide through 12 and then have to fight his way through the following sequence of right-handers. He got the move done, but unfortunately lost too much time while doing so. As we go through the timing beam once again, 2 to go. The lead is 0.8 of a second, and Zacconi, fastest lap for him in the race so far, 155.7, extended his lead by 0.3. If he can hold that sort of pace in the 155s for the final 2 laps, Montoya, no matter how hard he tries, won't be able to catch him.
Well, this first sector is going to be absolutely crucial as they come through the first sector, timing being very shortly. We'll let you know how much of an advantage Zacconi has, because Montoya, for the first time in a long time, has got clear air ahead of him, and he's able to finally showcase his pace, and he looks as though he's been able to pull a little bit in, which he has. It's a personal best first sector from Montoya, and he chips a 10th away off of Zacconi's lead.
And how the championship situation turns, it's advantage Montoya in the championship again, because not only is he ahead of Nicky Tuli now, but Tuli's now coming under big pressure from Kubo, who's holding that pace again. It's Tuli who's dropping off in the latter stages of the race. We did say it looked as if he was really on the ragged edge trying to hold that pace. Well, he's now struggling even to stay on the podium as Kubo now lines him up. He's surely going to have a go as we go down to turn 12 on the brakes into that left-hander. That's where Tuli's been overtaken for the lead. He stays back there for now, but of course Tuli lost second a lap ago to Montoya. Kubo, he'll have 1 more chance into 12 now on the final lap, and he'll have 2 more goes at the back straight into the final corner, where we know Kubo is very, very strong.
Into turns 14 and 15 for the penultimate time here in this first European Moto2 encounter. And once again, Jari Montoya has chipped away another 10 through Sector 2, but Zacconi responds through Sector 3. It looks as though there's going to be about 3/4 of a second separating the 2 Italians at the front with 1 lap to go. Zacconi in pole position to pick up a first win in 18 months. Meanwhile, Kubo can sniff, he can smell, it's right in front of him, a debut podium finish, and boy does he deserve it as well. It's been a super ride from the Thai rider so far. He's going to pull out alongside Nicky Tooley's to come across the start-finish line, an opportunity to move through on the brakes into turn number 1, but no, he's not able to get the job done. But he was as close as he's been so far in this race. 1 lap to go, 5.1 kilometres left, and we've got a battle for the lead and 3rd place.
Yeah, the lead is half a second. Montoya very, very strong in that last sector. Pulled a quarter of a second back on Zacconi. So it's a crucial first half of the lap because he's clearly strong at the end of the lap is Montoya. So if he can put himself in range, he might just be close enough to have another go. But at the moment, Zacconi did a 156.0 on that lap. That's just about enough. If he can do another lap like that, he might just have it. But Montoya again lighting up the timing screens in that first sector. Fastest of the race so far.
Pressure mounting on Alessandro Zaccone. Can he withstand Jari Montoya's late race pace here to pick up victory? And the same has to be said for Nicky Tooley. He's under even more pressure from Kevin Kubo, who is swarming over the rear wheel of the Finn. So far, so good, though. Just half a lap to go. This is going to be a key overtaking opportunity for both men. Montoya is definitely not close enough as we go on the brakes into turn 12. Kubo, meanwhile, could have a lunge up the inside here into turn 12. Has he managed to get the job done just out of our picture at the moment? It looks as though Tooley may well have held on, which he has. The bright yellow of Kubo still there in 4th. Into the chicane for the final time. Zaccone now half a second clear. Surely he's got enough in hand as we come down the back straight for the final time. Kubo is definitely going to have a lunge. That is absolutely guaranteed, Lewis.
He is. He's right on the back of him. He's maybe slightly too far back. We know how good he is through the second half of that last corner, but he doesn't look like he's got enough to get himself alongside Tooley. Tooley once again backing into the last corner. He looks like he'll just have enough.
The streak is over in European Moto2. After 6 victories to start the year, finally someone has beaten Jari Montoya. Zaccone takes victory for the first time in 18 months, with Montoya second and Tooley just taking second place ahead of Kevin Kubo. The pair split by just 79 one-thousandths of a second. And Alessandro Zaccone, when it means something, pulls in the fastest lap of the race on the last lap. He had to do something like that to withstand the pressure from Jari Montoya, and he delivered as well.
It's so fast, it dislodged his visor as he was coming across the start-finish line. We saw him into turn 1, and his visor on the left-hand side was coming loose. So a huge result for Alessandro Zaccone, and well-deserved as well. Pole position yesterday. Had to get in a real scrap with Nicky Tooley, and you could see how pumped up he is. He had to fight hard for that, and he had an answer for Tooley. And then at the end of the race, when Montoya did up the pace, got into those 155s and put a real chase on, Zaccone had the answer.
Brilliant ride from Zaccone, and fastest lap of the race on the last lap is not something you see very often. A 155.5, going 2/10 quicker than what Nicky Tooley managed in the opening stages of the race. That is pure brilliance from Zaccone. He had to do something like that as well, because Montoya was closing in at some rate of knots over the final 2 or 3 laps, but he eventually was able to withstand that pressure. And for Jari Montoya, yes, he wasn't able to reach 7th heaven in the European Moto2 Championship, but it is another podium finish. And most importantly, for the young Italian, he extends that championship lead out further from 34 points to now 38 ahead of 2 races tomorrow. That championship still there to be won tomorrow. Remember, he must be 50 points clear at the end of tomorrow's action to be crowned the European Moto2 champion. A word of praise has to go the way of Kevin Kubo as well. The number 9 picking up a career best result. Only 2.6 seconds adrift of the eventual race winner, Zaccone. That is a brilliant performance. And there we go, side-by-side wheelies. Onto the back wheel goes Alessandro Zaccone, and quite rightly too. Kubo celebrates in his typical charismatic style as well. And I'm sure he'll be hoping that he can go one better tomorrow. He will start from second once again, but what a boost of confidence that will be for the young Thai rider, knowing that he can battle with, he can contend with the best in the European Moto2 class. Another wheelie for good measure from Zaccone before he makes his way into Parc Fermé. An unusual circumstance for Jari Montoya, as for the first time he has to park in front of the P2 spot rather than P1, but I'm sure he will give a big hug, a big high five to his compatriot Zaccone after that brilliant battle in the closing stages here in Aragon. Delight for Alessandro Zaccone though, the promo racing man, and his squad can celebrate after a first victory for the team and the Italian since March of 2019. in that opening encounter in Estoril. Nicky Tooley, I think, just looking on the rear wheel. Yeah, there he is, pointing towards it. That is a rather shredded rear tyre. Not too pleased with that one, that he ran out of grip in the closing stages, and he'll probably feel that that is what cost him a chance at victory. Meanwhile, you'll be able to see in the back he picked a number 56 there, Alex Toledo. He did in the end get the better of Pierapong Boonlert for 8th place overall, and of course the Superstock 600 victory. Just 0.2 of a second separating them across the line. Xavi Cardelus got the better of Tiger Harder by just 86 1,000ths of a second for 6th place. So there were battles all the way down the field in that one. A brilliant opening Moto2 race of the weekend. Here's the race winning overtake then. We didn't actually see this at the time. An inventive move from Zaccone, lined it up through turn 14 and then dived through at turn 15. Not something you see very often, but a brilliant move nonetheless from Zaccone, and that is what helped him towards victory, the first of the year for the number 61. We'll be hearing from the race winner very shortly. A nice change of scenery. We've heard from Jari Montoya 6 times this year, but at long last we're able to hear the thoughts of someone else. Here is your race winner, Alessandro Zaccone with Lewis Sudderby.
Alessandro Zacconi, pole position and your first win of the season, and the fastest lap of the race on the last lap.
Yeah, incredible race. I feel very good all the weekend, and we have worked a lot in the test, and now today the bike was very good. We did also a step with the engine, because in the previous race was not slow, but was difficult, and now the bike was very good. I push a lot, very nice race, and we try to do the same tomorrow.
And in Italian?
What?
In Italian?
Sì, weekend per ora fantastico, pole position, giro veloce. La moto è andata veramente bene, il team ha fatto un gran lavoro anche durante i test. Abbiamo fatto anche uno step di motore che era un po' più veloce rispetto alle altre gare, e dai, questo è il posto che penso ci meritiamo, e proveremo a rifarlo anche domani.
Well done.
Grazie.
Here are the highlights then from the opening Moto2 race here in Aragon this weekend, with poleman Alessandro Zaccone taking full benefit of that debut pole position by taking a whole shot despite a wheelie off the line. But his lead didn't last for long, with Kevin Kubo diving through at turn 4 and somehow getting it stopped to hit the front of a Moto2 race for the second time in his career after a brief lead in Jerez. Zaccone battled back though, with Tooley and Montoya, the 2 championship protagonists, having their own little fight over third place. Tooley having got in front of Montoya, and then Kubo would hit the front ahead of Zaccone, with Kubo continuing to get it sideways at every given opportunity. This huge moment for Tooley would allow Zaccone back through. The pair were side by side for the vast majority of the race, as Montoya, who had a similar moment himself whilst trying to get in front of Kubo, dropped back to 5th at one stage, but eventually chipped his way forward and made it an 8-wheeler at the front of this race. Tooley hit the front once more as the 61 and the 66 swapped places lap after lap before this move, an inventive one from Alessandro Zaccone, would turn out to be the race-winning move. He was put under huge late pressure from Montoya as he eventually got in front of both Kubo and Tooley. He was chipping away, but was unable to close the gap and try get in front of Zaccone to make it a 7th straight win in a European Moto2 class, with the fastest lap of the race on the last lap from Zaccone, helping him secure a first win in 18 months ahead of Montoya and Tooley, who held off the late charging Kubo for the final podium place. Confirmation of the results here. Race 7 of 11 in the European Moto2 Championship is done and dusted with a new name at the top. Alessandro Zaccone, 9 tenths clear of Montoya, with Tooley 2.5 back, only a fraction clear of Kubo, who chucked everything at it on the final lap. It's a 6 straight top 5 finish for Alejandro Medina, with Cardalus getting the better of Tiger Harder and Toledo getting the better of Boonlert in late battles. The final top 10 place went to Adam Norridin, with Sam Wilfords, Fermin Aldeguer, Mattia Rato and Takeshi Ikuzuki, plus Alessandro Zetti taking the final points in this opening Moto2 encounter here in Aragon. Another 2 tomorrow, and hopefully we get more of the same after that brilliant fight between the 2 Italians, the Finn and the Thai rider.
En stock 600, ahí está Alex Toledo. El equipo AC Race, enhorabuena. Tercer clasificado.
Out of the podium comes Alex Toledo then. First time this year, he's the leading Superstock 600 runner and comfortably too ahead of Fermin Aldeguer. Nicky Tooley fought all the way to the end. In the end, just couldn't quite hold off the leading 2 Italians, including the championship leader, Yari Montoya. He loses his unbeaten record in 2020, but extends his championship lead, as we'll see shortly, over the man stood just to his left. And for the first time this season, a different winner, a first-time winner in 2020, second career win in the European Moto2 Championship. It is Alessandro Zacconi who takes top spot here at MotorLand Aragon and consolidates for him 3rd place in the championship. We'll bring you the full standings in just a moment. As Toledo takes his award, his first trophy of the season. After a string of second places in Superstock 600, he now gets to stand on the podium. Nicky Tooley, who, as Jack mentioned there in part for me, I was stood a few feet away from Tooley in part for me as he took a good long look at that rear tyre. It did not look in great shape at all, certainly when you parked it next to the rear tyres of Montoya and this man Zacconi, who did what he had to do in the end. He had an answer for everything, including the unbeaten championship leader Yari Montoya, his first victory of 2020.
250 euros de carburante para el 20.
He takes the 250 euros from Repsol to add to his winner's trophy. Can he add to that tomorrow? 2 more Moto2 races tomorrow here at MotorLand Aragon as we hear the Italian national anthem.
Il Tricolore flies high in the European Moto2 Championship once again this year, but for a different man on the top step of the podium. 7th heaven denied for Yari Montoya by his compatriot Alessandro Zaccone. And unlike the European Talent Cup, these guys all of age, so they can grab themselves the Prosecco and give it a good spray here on this podium at Aragon. The same goes for Alex Toledo as well. Great ride from him. 8th overall, despite being on a Superstock 600 bike, getting the better of Pirapong Boonlate to finish 8th on a stock 600 bike. I thought he was going to drop further back than that. He obviously will start from 5th for both races tomorrow as well, after taking advantage of the wet weather, which is understandably a bit of a leveler for him on the stock 600 bike. But fair play, battled away and finished 8th in the end. A brilliant result for him. In the championship standings, though, it's Montoya who leads now by 38 points, extends it out further over Nicky Tooley in 2nd, with Zaccone 57 back, still not out of contention, with now just 4 races left in the 2020 title chase. The streak is over then in the European Moto2 Championship. For the first time this year, Jari Montoya is defeated, with Alessandro Zaccone taking victory. But Montoya extends his championship lead out further ahead of 2 races tomorrow, where he could pick up the 2020 crown.